Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have a special treat for you tonight. All the way from California, New York Times best-selling author R.K.L. Wallace is here with us. Well, it appears that Mr. Wallace is running a little late. I've texted him numerous times and he's yet to reply. Let's hope he gets here in a timely fashion. And it looks like Mr. Wallace has finally entered the building.
Man, I'm so sorry. The line was really long at Chipotle. I got here as soon as I could.
Well, let's get started, Mr. Wallace. Alex, before we start the interview, would you mind taking your sunglasses off so we can see your eyes?
Actually, Dave, I'd prefer to leave them on. I'm a very secretive man.
And you're here today to talk about your new bestseller. It is entitled The Struggle of Democratic Politics in the Dominican Republic. How did you pick such an interesting topic?
Well, Dave, I've always been fascinated with the Dominican Republic. And I've also always been fascinated by democratic politics. I know nothing about either. I've never been to the Dominican Republic. In fact, everything in that book is completely made up. But it's a New York Times bestseller, and it's made me a ton of money. So I'm really happy about it.
So you mean to tell me that you wrote this best-selling novel about two subjects that you know nothing about? How'd you do that?
Well, it actually all started in Professor Jamie Warburton's creative writing class back at Ithaca College. In that class, I really learned how to write creatively, and I've been doing it ever since, and things are going really great for me right now.
Mm-hmm. Let's talk more about that creative writing class. It seems interesting. Can you tell me what was one of the more easier things for you about creative writing?
Well, in the creative writing class, we wrote a lot of short stories, and I found that I was really good at writing inner monologues of my characters. Because while characters may reflect some sort of false image on the outside, on the inside, in their innermost thoughts, that's who they really are, and it reveals a lot about my characters. And I was really good at conveying that through my work.
That is very fascinating stuff you just talked about. So maybe let's switch it to the opposite end. What do you think was the hardest part about creative writing?
For me, one of the hardest parts of creative writing, once again in my short stories, it was writing dialogue. Because for me, it just felt really forced, and it didn't sound like a natural conversation. And I feel like the best way to get better at that is only through practice. And through practicing more about writing dialogue, I'm eventually going to get better at it.
So in your fledgling career, what can you tell me about reading and responding to all these professional pieces?
We did a lot of reading and responding to pieces, which really helped me develop as a writer. We paid attention to plot, character development, language, pacing of the pieces we read was very important. Also, scene versus narration, as well as the language being used and the character's point of view were very essential components of all the readings we did and the responses we did.
Now, I'm sure not all the readings that you did were professional. Perhaps you can enlighten us on how you were able to critique and read your peers' work, too.
We did do a lot of that. We read a lot of our peers, not only short stories, but poetry. And with workshopping others' work, you definitely have to be sensitive of their feelings, but also, when you're workshopping, you can't try to turn it into something you would write. You just have to try to focus on making it a better piece and just be completely constructive in all your criticisms. So that was something I definitely learned in my creative writing class, and I still use it.
Really fascinating stuff. Perhaps you can tell me what you know about revision and how you were able to change some of your works around.
We definitely did a lot of revising, and it was essential to making all of my drafts and all my poems better. Because even though I'm an extremely accomplished, probably top 5 writers to ever exist, I still need to revise. So What was great is that I had two of my roommates in the class with me, so before I ever submitted a final draft, I would read my drafts out to them, and they always picked up on little weaknesses in my story that I missed, sort of cutting out the fat in certain areas of my stories and poems. And it just helped because reading something out loud makes it a lot more objective than subjective, and it helped really take my writing to the next level.
Those roommates sound like some pretty swell guys. Perhaps during this time in Jamie Warburton's class, did you experience or discover anything about yourself as a writer or a reader that you didn't already know?
That class, it was sort of what helped me discover that I could write creatively, because many people don't know this, but I was actually a business major at Ithaca College. I know, it sounds crazy now because I'm such a good writer, but really it happened. But yeah, that class taught me that I could write creatively, and being a business major, I had only written formal reports with numbers and statistics and figures, but in Professor Warburton's class, I was really just able to use my imagination, and a lot of the stuff I ended up writing about was coming of age topics, such as my short story, because that was just a topic I really wanted to talk about at the time, and it was great to have a class where I could showcase my passion about that topic.
Aside from just being a naturally gifted writer, did you discover anything else about yourself?
I definitely did, Dave. And it was surprising because with all the creative pieces I turned in, works of fiction, poetry, I was amazed at the almost therapeutic effect it had on me. And I learned that creative writing, it's a great outlet for emotions and personal feelings, an outlet that I really didn't have in my other business-related classes that I was taking at the time. So I definitely developed a sort of passion and talent for creative writing because it really gives back to the author as much as I'm putting into the story.
Is there anything else you'd like to tell your fans or perhaps the audiences at home that you learned about yourself?
Definitely. First, shout out to all my homies in New Hampshire. I made it, guys. I'm rich and famous. I told you, Miss Vass from 4th grade, you said that I was dumb, but look at me now. I'm so rich. Anyway, the question. Oh yes, to my fans. Well, in that class, creative writing, it wasn't a requirement for me, but in many ways it was the most important class I've taken at Ithaca, because whereas my other classes just tended to stress me out, my creative writing class, it was a joy to come in every day because I got to express myself through writing, I got to be creative, I got to joke around with my classmates and Professor Warburton and her creative questions that she would ask off the bat on every class. And it was just a great experience that I wouldn't trade for the world. And because of that experience, it's probably led me to being such a successful author right now.
I can't fucking do this anymore. This is the most unprofessional interview I've ever done. John, shut the fuck up. Listen, you don't even take off your sunglasses. You write a book that insults an entire fucking nation and you call yourself an established writer? Get the hell off my show.
Really, Dave? You're gonna disrespect me like that? I'm your guest. Is this how you treat guests when they come into your home? You disrespect them? I poured my life into this book, man. Yeah, it's a bunch of made up stuff, but it took a long time to write. Spent like a couple hours writing it, man. And you insult me like that? I don't have to take this. Yo, Vinny, let's get out of here, man. These guys aren't cool. And I'm taking your tiki. It's my tiki now.